And there was an empowerment as well that came from educating myself, understanding. But what I realized is that how easy it would have been for me to get this organized. We will default sometimes to having somebody else manage things for us. That gap also prevents us from really making decisions for ourselves that align with the future we envision.
Welcome to the Freedom CEO podcast. It's about becoming the chief decision maker over your life in order to step into a life of freedom. From business, health, wealth, charity, and giving back to just doing life on your own terms. I am your host, Shay Invidiata. I am an award-winning activist, change maker, and a multifaceted impact entrepreneur with over a decade of experience in business, philanthropy, and health and wellness. In this space, I'm going to be bringing you insights, not just from me, but from incredible thought leaders around the globe to help you start making decisions towards living a life of freedom so you can live a life you love. Are you ready, guys? Because we are going all in.
You know those meetings you have when you show up to have discussions with somebody where you know you're going to learn, there's going to be value, but then in the conversation, it takes a twist and you end up having an even bigger conversation that tugs on your heartstrings and makes you walk away feeling empowered, so happy, grateful that you just had that conversation with that person? Well, that is today's episode. I had the honor of sitting down with Rakhee Dhingra, and let me tell you, our conversation is all this. You're going to learn, find value, be taught a thing or two, and I also think your heartstrings is going to be tugged on just a little bit. She is the founder and visionary of Mortgage Savvy, a brokerage that's not just about transactions, but is about connections. With a background in financial services, Rakhee climbed the ladder from teller to financial service managers at big banks, learning the importance of relationships along the way. Rakhee is not just a mortgage broker, she's a guide on the path to financial freedom, and her mission is clear: empower clients to take control of their financial decisions and live authentically. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. It's such a solid one.
Today's episode is something I am super passionate about, and I'm so excited to introduce and welcome on the Freedom CEO podcast. Rakhee, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you're here because we are talking about women in business, women in finance, and you and I have never really actually met in person. We've greeted in person, if you will. Right? And we Instagram back and forth here and there. And I have this new journey that I'm embarking on in my life where I've been advocating for women and championing women for about 20 years and really feeling like it's time for me to expand and level up even on that and seeing women create freedom in their lives and come into full empowerment around that. And so in this new shift for me and my own evolution of self, I connected with you, and you are a woman in business. You have such a powerful story, which I think that's like where we're going to start, where you had something significant happen to you that all of a sudden you had to learn and acquire new skills and step into business in a whole new unexpected way. And so I'm just grateful that you're going to be here to share. So let's start there. Tell us a bit about your journey and your background, and let's do it.
Thank you for the opportunity to share. I started my journey in financial services 8 years ago. So I come from a very strong finance background, very traditional East Indian family, and the trajectory of my career and my path was to climb that corporate ladder. About 8 years ago, that shifted when I decided that I was going to start my own mortgage brokerage. And the intention really was to do my own mortgages. I was looking to build wealth passively. I wanted to live a life by financial design. And I thought to myself, if I could learn how to secure my own mortgages, be able to structure transactions to be able to continue with real estate acquisition, that would give me the financial freedom for the future. And once a month, I would help a new client. My first transaction was a young couple that had a child with developmental issues. And being a new mom myself, that just hit my heart.
Sure.
And there was just this immediate connection. So I worked with them over the course of 8 months, rebuilt credit. They were in my living room every month. It's amazing to see the gap. Even as professionals, we're busy working, managing, responsibilities at home. And then there's this gap, and there is this lacking of education on how to effectively manage your income and ensure that you're setting funds aside for other goals outside of just managing day-to-day expenses. So I worked with these clients, and they purchased their first property. Within 8 months, we had them purchase their first investment, and they sent me an image of their daughter opening the door to the investment property, and something just exploded. And that was Mortgage Savvy was created. That was the joy and the reward I felt from making a difference in somebody's life had more meaning than me doing $1 billion deal on the corporate banking side. And that was the start of a whole new path for me. And in supporting clients, I had pretty exponential growth because mortgages are just a tool.
Sure.
So mortgages were my tool of executing the transactional piece, but I was really wealth building with my clients. As I was building my own path, as we learn new things, we learn new skills, they come up naturally in conversation with others.
Yeah.
Doing that for my clients, and I was building my own real estate portfolio with my husband. I just assumed that I would continue down this path. Do the one thing I knew how to do really well.
Yeah.
The life doesn't always move as planned. And over the course of the last 12 months, I've lost my mom.
Oh, sorry.
So thank you. But I also lost my husband.
So hard.
And that was emotionally, I'm still in the process of grieving, and I think I will forever. But there was this whole other element where I don't think I've been given the time to grieve because I had to immediately step into a role of being able to manage items within the estate, understanding title, understanding probate, as a financial professional that I wasn't aware of.
Right.
I had spent the last 8 years building wealth, but I failed to protect it. And over the last 2 years, I've seen clients have their own struggles, whether it be health, divorce, separation. Everyone has a story.
Sure. Yeah.
But we become so fixated on the one skill that we know how to execute. I think that there is a transition in our industry as a whole where we're now financial life planners. And that requires a different skill set. And you very often will meet with people that provide you with the inspiration. Very few are actually able to give you tangible knowledge that allows you to walk away and implement and create change in your life. So my mandate is everything that I wasn't aware of, I want to equip everybody I can with this knowledge so they never have to go through what I went through. They don't have to rebuild from scratch. And where I get really vulnerable is that I ran an extreme, and still run a very lucrative, successful, revenue generating business. But in doing that, being a mom, being a wife, I wasn't able to manage it all. And we need that support system to lean on for that support. And that is my story. I am still navigating the financial turbulence. I am still rebuilding, but with a whole new vision and motivation than I've ever had before.
So you have such a powerful story. And again, my heart just, it goes out to you for your loss. experiencing two key people in your life, two pillars in your life, and so I just want to say, like, my thoughts and my prayers, will remain with you. And when I first heard you share your story, that's where I was like, I would love for you to come on the show, because I think there's so many things in life. It might not be a death or like the loss of a loved one, but there's these big moments that happen in life, like life happens, and they can be very tragic and can derail you off of your path. Or like you said, you thought you were going to do this one thing and just keep focusing on this one thing. And your whole world got thrown upside down, and you still have to learn how to navigate in it. And I think for a woman like yourself, and I do want to tap into, got some questions for you about starting Mortgage Savvy, but you had a runway ahead of you where you still had a good foundation around business, money, finances. And this is part of why it's so important to be having these conversations. And I'm grateful for you being vulnerable and sharing some of the weaker, or like not even necessarily weaker, but the vulnerable, the harder, and sometimes maybe more hurtful things to be talking about. But it's these type of things that give other women permission to go, me too, or I can learn from that, or I can relate, and knowing like, it's okay. It's okay to have been derailed. It's okay to be taking a few steps back. It's okay that you have to rebuild, even for a woman who has been in business and who has been in finance more than most other women who are, because you could be a woman in a corporate job that still will have zero clue about finance. But because you're in the mortgage space, you have to have some, it might not be extensive, but you've got a little more than the average like corporate female. And so I would love to just unpack a bit of what it was like for you, and, coming out of corporate, wanting to start your own and starting your own mortgage company, but as like a female. And like, what were some of those hurdles and like lessons that you learned around starting your own company?
I was really fortunate. I like to lead with that. I did not set into building a brokerage. This was completely an accident. I was really fortunate that I was able to build out a business plan that really focused on helping clients not necessarily secure a mortgage. The mortgage was the tool, and my focus was more so that wealth building strategy. And I can break it down for you. It was a really simple strategy. It was the idea of one primary residence that we would eventually help get mortgage free, because it's your only tax-free asset, to investment properties that every few years we would refinance to leverage prepayments on the owner occupied.
Right.
In the first 5 years of a client securing a mortgage with Mortgage Savvy, we built out a budget sheet where every year the client would apply an extra month of mortgage payments onto the mortgage.
Right.
It's a really simple, stupid method that we developed, and we provided clients with the coaching. So it was the mortgage. If you were a Mortgage Savvy client, we onboarded you, we stayed with you, and we just provided you with the reminders: increase your payment. It's time to do this. It's time to reassess our spending habits, tweak. It was simple changes, but it was incredible to see the magnitude of the impact.
Right.
Where I really saw it is Rick passed away in September of 2023. And to date, that has been Mortgage Savvy's most profitable month in terms of revenue and volume of transactions funded.
Wow.
Because it comes down to relationships, impact, loyalty, and love. And that is what I think we organically, naturally built, one client at a time. And then it just became this energy. But I was really fortunate because I wanted to do it for myself. I got married. I had my daughter within 6 months. She came early. I was suddenly a stay-at-home mom, and I love being a mother, but being at home with her had its challenges. At that time, my husband did really well, and I didn't need to work. but I was really focused on creating that life. I wanted to travel. I wanted, I wanted the flexibility. There was this goal. You get married, you have a child, and the goal is to be mortgage free. Like once you're mortgage free, that's when you plan for the rest. And that's what I wanted to start doing for myself. But when you're working on something for yourself, you are you're naturally walking and talking it with everybody around you.
Right. So, okay, let me ask you, because you had said, like fast forward a bit, congratulations on having such an incredible month at such a hard time in your life too. Like I look at that and I'm like, what a gift from the universe, like at that time. You had shared some of the realizations around failing to protect your wealth. And if you're cool with it, I would love to understand like what that meant and what some of these realizations are or were for you, to maybe help some other women and men, the men tune in here as well, but for people to just really start thinking about, maybe they think they know where they are, or they think that they have something protected or figured out, when really they could be exposed without realizing it.
Absolutely. I say my mandate today is to move people from vulnerability to invincibility.
I love that.
Had to learn
Yeah.
hard way. And this is hard for me because this is me getting very vulnerable. I was so busy and so focused on building my business and supporting my clients, I failed to put in an effective plan for myself. And it's interesting because I often recognize that in relationship dynamics and family dynamics, there's usually one partner that's taking that dominant role in managing the finances. And then there is this, another portion of that, the other side of it is someone that's working to, earn. And I do think that this is where this is hard. And this is the first time I'm saying it out loud, because I absolutely loved my husband and miss him dearly, but I gave him the reins. I allowed him to make decisions. I assumed that things were being carefully allocated, carefully managed. There were a lot of assumptions that I realized that there were gaps. There were decisions that were not being made in our best interest. That there were losses that were not being communicated to me. That my financial situation and what we had been working really hard towards didn't match any longer.
Right.
And I think that also, is something that's ingrained from a cultural perspective across many cultures. That
it's a gender thing,
right?
Cultural, right? It's gender.
It is, as a female dominant provider, from an optics perspective, the visualization of this family was he was the dominant sort of controller of that. And I was working and managing family. And although I was doing this for my clients, there was this massive gap, right? You get to a point where you're busy in the day-to-day. It's called marriage life, and you take on roles. And right now, what I am focused on is helping women in transition still keep that positive mentality, but create a soft foundation for a landing should life present an obstacle that creates a situation where they need that, right? So it's about planning. And what I do with my clients now is I've created something, and it's something that I refer to as the vault. And it's a booklet where I go through everything that I wish somebody had done with me. And it's a place where all the information is stored. And then there's an aspect that allows you to really focus on revisiting. As professionals in the real estate industry, mortgages, real estate, we don't necessarily have an end date because succession strategies are hard to formulate.
Yeah.
And what I've started to do now from my experience is really go back and revisit everything. We had multiple properties. life insurance policies didn't necessarily cover what we assumed they had covered.
Right.
Our will hadn't been updated.
Right.
We had assets, because sometimes to qualify for a mortgage strategically, it made sense to have properties in my name, properties in his name. None of this was organized in a way that would have protected my daughter and I didn't realize that or feel the impact of it until it was too late.
Right. So again, I'm going to thank you for being vulnerable and thank you for sharing, especially, you know, as you said, some of the things you shared was for the first time out loud. This is something I am extremely passionate about, making women aware to start having these questions. And actually today, if you were to go on my Instagram after our chat, I'm actually posting a post about exactly what you just said, giving permission to start having these conversations with your partner. Because yes, a lot of women assume that things are being handled. They assume that things are being managed. And sometimes men are not as financially literate as we think that they are, or they would like us to think, or that they don't realize. It's not even like a trying to trick or hiding something, but sometimes like the dominant person or the one taking the reins is just as vulnerable or has a blind spot that they're not aware of. And so it's crazy, because the money topic, right? The conversation around money is one of the most common things fought about in the household. It's one of the most common stress factors. And yet still so many people live in this separation. You argue about it, but there's not a conversation around opening up everything to put it on the table. And what I'm wanting to encourage women is, rather than be in a dominant or a reigns, or I'm going to use the word like a dictatorship situation, there's always a captain on a team, right? Like there's always a captain on a team who is still the lead person, but recognizing that the captain still might call the shots at the end of the day, but has to rely on the participation, the contribution, and even the suggestion and advice of the other team players on the team. Without that, you actually can't function. You don't have a team. You're not in a game if there's just one person. And having this conversation with your partner to say, hey, babe, what do you think about if we started to view our finances? Again, there will always be a dominant person, you know, could be the female, could be the male, but looking at it as a captain.
Yes.
And going, I'm also a team player, and we review the plays, right? We look at strategies together. We look at how to win. The whole point is to win. And so when you start looking at finances as this game that you're playing together, no matter who's the stronger one, meaning maybe they bring in more money, but every team player on a team is still valuable, right? And so it's opening this up. And so this is what I'm going to be talking about today on my post. And I love that you're sharing this, because so many women, and I'll give you actually an example. As I think you know, I'm in real estate and have been for 15 years. And so I hear so many of these stories, whether they're in younger parts of life like yourself, where an unfortunate life circumstances happen where they've lost a partner and then this realization is happening, or later on in life, mid-50s, divorce, husband took care of everything. They had no established credit because credit cards were all underneath them. They were the supplementary. Phone plans was all underneath them. They were on the family plan. And now trying to rebuild at that stage of life is even harder to get, never mind a mortgage, but just to even qualify to be a tenant if you have no established credit, as you know. And I was going through a house in Mississauga. The house was worth about $3 million. The couple had been there for 20 years, okay? The wife was taking me through the house. I'm asking questions, upgrades, renovations, yada, yada. We go down into the lower level, and I say to her, your hot water tank, is it rented or owned? She looks at me, and puzzled. She goes, I actually don't know. I go, here's a woman, 20 years they've been in that house, has zero idea if no money is leaving their account or an expense of anywhere between $150 to $250 is leaving every single month. And similar to what you just shared, she is relying and expecting clearly her partner to be paying that bill, that the funds are in that account, and where she thinks she is versus where they actually are could be, doesn't mean it is, but could be a major discrepancy. And so until something were to happen to him, knock on wood,
she would know.
She does not know. And this is the issue. And it's like, he could still handle, but she needs to participate. She needs to know, right? Like, know those bills, what's coming in, what's going out, the passwords even. I have a girlfriend of mine. She was resuscitating her husband on the kitchen floor. And in that moment of, obviously all kinds of things are coming to your mind, I'm sure, she realized she knows nothing. She knows none of the passwords, none of the logins. So even when you talk about the vault, this tool you made, I love that, because you need to have this central point where, God forbid, something were to happen in the most stressful and sad point in your life, there's this part should be calm because it's organized, it's already there, and you'll deal with that part when you need to deal with it, but you're not going, oh my God, I don't know anything and I have no idea what's going on. And so I actually have goosebumps. I don't know if you can see, but I actually have goosebumps from you sharing that, because and even tonight, in my workshop, this is a huge piece that I'm going to be sharing with women, because it's so important.
For me, I shied away from it because here I am, this dominant sort of figure in finance. I'm a female. I'm running a successful business. I'm the dominant provider as well. And I don't have an awareness of where things are flowing. And it wasn't until things were at a place where I had absolutely no choice but to take that on. And there was an empowerment as well that came from educating myself, understanding. But what I realized is that how easy it would have been for me to get this organized, to get the education that I needed. Coming from finance,
sure,
fill gaps. And it's so important to fill it. But part of that as well is that we will default sometimes to having somebody else manage things for us. But that gap also prevents us from really making decisions for ourselves that align with the future we envision.
Yeah.
And it also allows these opportunities to fall. And now it's given me ownership. And what I know now is going to take me, I had to go from here to here and rebuild, but it's going to take me from here to here, because that knowledge now is going to allow me to basically accelerate. But now that I have figured it out, because it's to have it, to lose it, to rebuild, the rebuild has now given me these tools and this skill set that I'm now able to educate other people in. Like, give them the exact skill set that they need, provide them with that education so that they can go out there and start rebuilding for themselves and create that own picture that aligns with their future.
Yeah.
Conversations like this just light me up. And I hope you're loving today's episode too. My friend, can I ask a quick favor of you? Could you please hit the subscribe or follow button? You have no idea how much that helps this show grow, so discussions like this can reach others as well. And if you want to go the extra mile, please leave a review. Your thoughts and feedback mean so much to me. After all, this show is created for you. Okay, that's it. Let's get back to it.
We both know there's many women who, never mind rebuilding, have just never even started. And so what is your advice to women who are like, I don't know where to start, I don't know what to do? What do you typically recommend?
It's important to detach from the fear. So I think it's fear. Fear is the one emotion, right, that seems to hold us back. So I think it's one is just moving past that, right? And you used the magic word earlier, which is money mindset, right? Just understanding that we need to look at our finances and we need to approach money and wealth and from a place of empowerment versus fear. And it's okay to admit that you don't know. Yep. And it's important to rely on supports to fill those gaps. So to reach out and create connection where you can then tap into individuals that can provide you with that guidance. When I connect with, individuals requiring this coaching and support, which is where my passion lies, mortgages are still something that we do, but I feel like I've evolved. I've created these other verticals. If something's worked for me, I'm offering it to our clients. I'm ensuring that I'm educating them on opportunities, but it really starts with not the numbers. It starts with, what is your vision? Where do you want to be in 5 years? Once I can understand that, then I'm going to scale it back.
Right.
And then let's look at your tax returns. Let's look at your current income. If you're self-employed, let's look at your projected revenue. Let's kind of analyze what things have looked like over the last 4 years, because we've seen a variance year over year. And then I'm looking at where their liabilities are sitting, where their assets are sitting, and I'm immediately working with them to set some goals so that they can start moving towards that 5-year plan. And there is sometimes an element of a mortgage and real estate, but not always.
Right.
So I'm also very transparent. I'm going to give clients real advice. I'm going to educate them on where they're sitting and what they need to do. And sometimes, as you mentioned as well, it could be credit concerns. And again, fear.
Yeah.
Dispute.
Right.
We've all gone through periods of bad credit, especially through transitions, right? Divorce, separation, even, becoming a widow. There were elements as we waited to go into probate. There were, these have impact on credit, but there are ways to mediate it and getting the education. We provide clients with the link. We provide clients with the verbiage. We provide clients with the information that they need so that they can, mitigate these things and eventually get there. It's a process, and it's about arming yourself with the tools, the knowledge and the supports to get there.
So what do you typically advise, like for somebody who's wanting to establish credit or better their credit? What are some of the practical things that you can do to do that, to strengthen your credit?
So we recommend that that you have at least 2 sources of credit. So 2 trades reporting. I think that's extremely important. That's what you want to see as a minimum. You want to ensure that you are setting up your payments for automatic payments at least 5 business days before the due date, because you don't want late payments, and life can get in the way, including technology and issues. So it's so important that you're just being mindful of setting things up in a way that is easy and ensure that you're not necessarily falling behind on payments. 2 is utilization. We encourage clients to be very mindful of the credit, apply a prepayment on your credit cards, and then be mindful of your spend. Ensure that you're working with a budget and holding yourself accountable. Credit can be scary if it's mismanaged, or if you're lacking the awareness of where that credit is being utilized. So we do that as well. So really just being mindful of that you're having credit reporting, that you're addressing payments on time, and that you're continuing to build history. That's critical.
And is there things like, would you say, is a credit card or like a phone plan versus a car payment, is one better to establish than the other to like help your credit score, or does that not really matter?
So we do recommend that the 2 trades be reflective of, a term loan, like a car loan, a line of credit, or a credit card. Those are going to actually reflect better than a cell phone reporting on your bureau, because it has a higher limit associated with it, right? We want to be able to demonstrate to a lender that you are responsible and mindful with your credit, able to meet your obligations and not heavily be reliant on the credit to kind of sustain day-to-day expenses.
And how long does it take typically if you were to, like, I don't know, let's say your credit score is poor and obviously you're wanting to get it to excellent, in the 800s plus, are you looking at a 6-month kind of turnaround time to start improving it? Like how long typically does that reverse take place?
So in terms of impacting the score, it's going to vary client to client because a sort of issue on a credit report might be reflective of, for example, missed payments. So then it may take a little bit longer than 6 months because now we're going to need to demonstrate to a lender our ability to sustain timely payments for a longer duration of time. But on average, it is about 6 to 12 months with the right coaching and support. And nobody has perfect credit. The credit reporting system sometimes is lacking, knowledge, or there might be something reporting that you're unaware of. So what we'd like to do is have clients take an awareness. Every month or two, you should be looking at you should be subscribing to a service where you're just being mindful of what is reporting, make sure it's accurate, and be mindful of your spend. I encourage clients to open their mail and audit their statements.
Yes.
I highly encourage that. Or if you have 2 credit cards, designate one for sort of mandatory automatic payments that come out monthly and the secondary card for sort of leisure expenses, so that every month you're tallying that up and it's really clear to see that you're kind of staying sort of committed to your budget strategy. But it also allows you to very quickly assess and recognize charges that might or should not be appearing, which happens as well. Usually when we go through the audit exercise with clients are surprised at how much they're spending.
Totally.
And we identify charges that they weren't aware of, and immediately that has an impact on their financial situation. So it's so important to create an awareness as well on what you have reporting. And, I often say that your credit report is so important in terms of being able to give you access to opportunity. So we want to be mindful of protecting that.
Of course, 100%. So I love that. And obviously, I'm like really huge on doing these audits. And I think part of the mindset shift for a lot of people that is helpful is looking at your money like you would if you were to meet a new person that you really like. You would spend time with them, you would ask questions, you'd really become intimate, like getting to know that person, that friend. And for a lot of, I think especially women, there's like an avoidance. It's like, even you saying opening your bills. How many people like have their bills come in and they're like, I don't want to see what's on the other side. And it's like, you wouldn't do that to a new friend that you like, And so it's like needing to shift the mindset, but our relationship around money, that money doesn't need to be fearful, that it's not bad. It's actually the opposite. It can be expansive and it can be filled with love and it can be an abundant source and overflowing. And when you start to view it that way, you actually get excited, and shifting a bill to being something negative to being, I'm grateful that I have water and therefore I have this bill that comes in. I'm grateful that I have internet so that you and I can actually have this conversation today. And so seeing these bills as an opportunity to sit in gratitude, and that, as elevates your frequency. And money loves generosity. Money loves like happiness, I always say like passion versus attention, because that can be a very egotistic word. I don't like that. But the more that you give your attention to money in a gratitude way, in a joyful way, it starts to expand for you. No different than it does in a relationship of a person that you're meeting and you're getting to know.
I love that. And that's what we do for clients. It's not the audit. It's not the exercise of curbing. It's showing the power of being able to take that additional residual income, apply it elsewhere, and for them to be empowered by the growth that gets them immediately in a different space. And you immediately start to see actions and you immediately start to see growth. And that is the gift in this, right? It's shifting from a place of fear and the unknown to a position of power, growth.
Yeah. I love it. So share with me a little bit, like what is coming up for you next? Like what is on the horizon? What are you working on? What do you have happening?
I'm really focused on shifting. The last few years in real estate and mortgages, I find that we're so transactional in our roles, and I'm sort of looking to challenge that. I find that anyone in this industry, we've gone through, our markets that were thriving, we've gone through the adjustments, and I think that's because we've taken the wrong focus. We're so focused on the transactional piece and that one thing that we need to do. The last few years, interest rates, understanding that people's stories align with their finances. My focus is really financial life planning. I've moved away from just being a mortgage broker to supporting clients and ensuring that they are legacy planning, succession planning. Our book of business is usually our phone or our database. We need to start shifting that mindset, and we need additional passive streams of income so that we can weather the shifts in the market. So how do we do that?
Yeah.
I'm looking to build in these silos, provide that education, and help clients focus on an end date. For me, that's taken on a whole new meaning. It's just me and my daughter.
Yes.
I have nobody to rely on.
Yeah.
I've lost my 2 pillars, and in that, I'm now forced to be my own.
Of course. Yes.
Sort of foundation. So building that out. But as I build it out for myself, that education and understanding is something that I'm providing others with. We've gotten into the multi-unit that's been wonderful for investors in a shifted market. So we now do commercial financing. And just last week, I walked into a property that we helped build through CMHC's product.
Okay.
It's a $2.8 million property, 5 units.
Yeah.
140,000 down and 160,000 in annual income. That's
amazing.
Empowerment. And my client is a widow that was left with, a sizable sort of return after she sold her home. But her dream is to live abroad, have a place that's going to debt service, and start to live because she's understood that time is the most valuable commodity. And we were able to get creative with the approach. So my focus is education, ensuring that clients have a will, that they're ensuring that they have their proper tax strategies in place, that they're focusing on an end game. What does that vision look like? And help them realize on it. So for me, I'm empowered to kind of create these shifts and changes because I want to do them for myself. And as I learn new skills and I learn of new opportunities, it's really ensure that I'm sharing those with others and helping them transition as well.
I love that. So powerful. And I feel like everybody listening to this needs to connect with you and go through your audit process, go through this assessment, because, as I shared earlier, where you are versus where you think you are can be 2 different things. And unless we actually do an audit and we take a look, and not just like finances, it can be like within your health, like there's all these different silos and different areas of our lives. It's just so important to do. So tell us, how can we best connect with you?
You can reach out to me. We have a strong presence on Instagram where we really focus on the education piece. So anybody that's looking to just learn of, potential offerings or wants to learn the educational piece of it can reach out on Mortgage Savvy, or reach out to me directly through email or call me directly. I'm actually quite accessible. So feel free to call or text, and I would welcome the opportunity to connect.
I love that. Well, I'm so grateful to have you on today and just opening up and be vulnerable and being able to help women be guided through some of the lessons that you've had to undergo. Before I let you go, because you are on the Freedom CO podcast, and so I always love asking this question. Even though you are a CEO in your own business, how has you becoming the CEO in your life, in the totality, not just in your business, but in your life, how has that brought you freedom?
With what I've gone through the last year, the one power that I have had that nobody could shake or take from me was the ability to create wealth. And regardless of where I was starting, I know and I'm confident in my ability to build. Like that is just something I naturally do. So it's that skill set now that empowers me, not only in my life, but it's given me that piece that I'm now wanting to give other people that same empowerment with.
Oh, I love that. And it's so true. And what you're saying as well is that it does not matter if you're 40, if you're 20, if you're 60. You just shared about your other client, that sounds like she's in a later part of her life. And if you have that skill set through being empowered like that, it does not matter what your age is. You can start at any point from wherever you are.
And that is the gift, right? Being the mother of a young daughter, a teenage daughter, it's the same thing. I want to empower her with this ability to stand on her own, always.
Yeah.
Fight for herself.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for sharing. You can come back on anytime. I feel like we could just keep diving into this conversation more and more. But I'm just so grateful for you coming on today.
Oh, I'm so grateful for the opportunity. This was wonderful.
I recently hosted a workshop called The Audit, The Path to Financial Empowerment, where we dive into foundational principles that you need to know, that you need to start to implement in order to create financial freedom and build wealth in your life. So I wanted to extend this to you so that you could go in on your own time at your own pace. There's a 26-page workbook that you can journey through that is going to help you get really clear on your finances, where you at versus where you think you are at, and then what you need to start doing to start building your own financial pathway to financial freedom. So click on the link below in the show notes. You will gain access to the replay there, or you can hit me up on Instagram, send me a DM with the word audit, and I will send you the link directly to your account. Thanks for tuning into the Freedom CEO podcast. If you got value out of today's show, I would love for you to leave a review, as it will help my show reach other people as well. You know what to do. Download this episode, click the like and subscribe button. If you feel like spreading more love, hop over to Instagram and share today's show in your stories. Remember to tag Shane Vidiata and the Freedom CEO. My DMs are always open, so drop me a line. I'd love to connect. Until next time, keep owning your decisions to live a life of freedom. Live a life you love.